The ideal bodyguards were the most silent, yet lethal men in the entire world. These men were often already renowned knights, with backgrounds and deeds worthy of at least recognition, if not song. Yet, the men of the Kingsguard were tasked with possessing one final quality to cement their place at the side of the king: unyielding loyalty. The perfect candidate for one of the highest honors in the realm had to be a stoic, menacing brute with a decorated or promising history, while also having the ability to remain at and on the side of the king at all times. And though the Kingsguard suffered from the same petty politics as the rest of Westeros, one such man came at least close to this image: Balon Swann. Hello everyone, and welcome back to Exploring Fiction. Sir Balon Swann became a well-respected member of the Kingsguard, much more venerated than some of his peers, and just as was asked, he served the crown blindly. Though this followed the sacred oath he made to his order, it also placed him in the service of some of the most detestable individuals alive. Balon Swann was himself a good man, but the circumstances surrounding his position in the Order of the White Cloaks led him into the company of those with a lesser interest for justice. So, who exactly is Balon Swann, and why is he such an interesting character? Let's explore. Balon Swann was born on an unidentified year to Lord Julian Swann of Stonehelm and his wife. The second son of the pair, Balon was never destined for lordship, and so made a perfect candidate for the Kingsguard later in the narrative. This sentiment was only heightened as he honed his physique and skills with weaponry. Balon trained with lance, morningstar, and bow, and was at worst adequate, and at best exceptional, with each. He was broad and strong, burlier and stockier than most of his future colleagues, but also far more reserved and respectable. The heraldry of his house, black and white swans, decorated his garb wherever possible, and into battle he wore a gleaming white helm fit with white wings jutting out from either side. And though he was a knight trained primarily for combat, he enjoyed festivities and tourneys the same as the rest of his brothers. Sir Balon Swann first appears in A Song of Ice and Fire in A Game of Thrones. He is one amongst many to participate in the festivities of the King's Hand tourney, where he falls to Sir Gregor Clegane in the joust, and Anguy in the archery contest. He also joins the king, Robert Baratheon, on his great hunt for the White Hart in the Kingswood, but returns to the Red Keep when the man is mangled by the tusk of a fierce boar. Lord Eddard Stark, acting hand to the king, attempts to take control of the court for the good of the Seven Kingdoms, but in a fatal miscalculation, chooses the aid of the Gold Cloaks over other available allies, including Balon Swann. Eddard loses his life for his efforts, and Balon remains at court, choosing to serve new king Joffrey Baratheon. In A Clash of Kings, Sir Balon Swann once again appears. His reputation at court and amongst the other highborn grows, and the abandoned and cast aside Sansa Stark hopes he is her secret savior. Alas, Sir Balon has pledged his service to the crown, and so chooses to first serve Joffrey before any other. And while it is his duty, it places him at odds with his immediate family. Sir Donal Swann, his brother, supports Renly and then Stannis in the War of the Five Kings, and forces Lord Julian Swann to claim illness to avoid facing backlash from either side. When Sir Preston Greenfield is slain in the riot in the heart of King's Landing, Cersei Lannister chooses Sir Balon to take his place on the Kingsguard. Finally, the second son of Stonehelm finds his calling, and the Kingsguard gains a deserving member. Almost immediately, Balon's mettle is put to the test, as the forces of Stannis, amongst which stands his brother Donal, march upon King's Landing. The fiery Battle of the Blackwater ensues, and Sir Balon is one of the men to lead the defense of the city. He survives, if not worse for wear, and spends hours beside his fellow White Cloaks, knighting various individuals for their efforts in the conflict. Sir Donal Swann, who also survived, bends the knee to Joffrey. Sir Balon Swann continues his Kingsguard service in A Storm of Swords. He stands dutifully at attention and in attendance for both the wedding of Tyrion Lannister to Sansa Stark, as well as that of Joffrey Baratheon to Margaery Tyrell. However, he, along with the rest of the White Cloaks, is unable to save his charge from a cruel death, as Joffrey suffocates during what is to be his finest hour. Later, once Sir Jaime Lannister has finally returned to King's Landing, though in 2 unfortunate pieces, he remarks that Sir Balon is a fine addition to the Order. Balon admits great shame at his failure to protect Joffrey, and Jaime tests his loyalty to his position by questioning if Balon would protect the king even from his own blood. While Sir Swann provides his assurances, none can know the truth in their heart until the situation springs upon them. Sir Balon is also called as the first witness in the trial of Tyrion Lannister. He testifies to the bravery and valor of the imp, especially during the Blackwater, when even the hardiest knights knew terror. However, he also highlights Tyrion's disrespect and disdain for Joffrey, and reveals that he witnessed the man slap the king across the face after the riot. Despite his veneration for one so hated by most others, Sir Balon and his testimony assist in condemning Tyrion, until the man calls for a trial by combat. Luck has run afoul of the imp, though, and he only escapes doom and death through stealth and a patricidal crossbow bolt. The consequences of Tyrion Lannister's actions affect many in King's Landing, including Sir Balon Swann in A Feast for Crows. At first, Balon stands vigil with Sir Jaime over Tywin's corpse, but the Lord Commander of the Kingsguard soon assigns him to the role of King Tommen's personal bodyguard. Balon takes to the job with renewed spirit, watching over the young king with sharp, yet caring, scrutiny. However, Queen Regent Cersei Lannister soon selects the second son of Stonehelm for a far more extensive task. Sir Balon Swann is to travel to Dorne under the pretense of delivering the skull of Sir Gregor Clegane to the Martells. In secret, though, he is tasked with retrieving Princess Myrcella and returning her safely to the capital. Even as he sets off for the far south, Balon is oblivious to the danger facing Myrcella, who is the central figure in a coup attempt by Princess Arianne Martell. In the skirmish, she is wounded by the rogue knight Darkstar, and returned worse for wear, and without her current guardian, Sir Aerys Oakheart. In A Dance with Dragons, Sir Balon arrives at Sunspear, and proves the antithesis of Myrcella's former protector. He, along with his extensive retinue, present the Martells with the skull of the mountain, and attends a feast in his honor. Despite the lavish appearance of the place, Balon remains wary and on his guard, resisting Princess Arianne's advances, and caring not if he disgruntles his hosts. After dispensing with the formalities, Balon begins to enact Cersei's plan. He explains that he has come to collect Myrcella for a visit home, as well as to escort to King's Landing the new member of House Martell who is to take Prince Oberyn's seat on the small council. Prince Doran Martell suggests they travel by sea, but Balon shies away, stirring subconscious suspicions within the prince. It is determined that Prince Trystane Martell will claim Oberyn's seat, but once Balon is dismissed, Doran explains to the rest of his family he has uncovered Cersei's plot. While on the road, the party is to be ambushed, and Trystane is to be killed by mercenaries masquerading as allies of Tyrion Lannister. Therefore, Balon is free to return to the capital with Myrcella, and Trystane's death is to be neatly blamed on Tyrion. Doran and the Martells decide this plan is the true reason Balon is reluctant to travel by sea, and while the stout man of the Kingsguard is certainly part of the cunning plot, Doran determines he is merely following orders, and they cannot kill him due to the tradition of guest right. Instead, the Martells convince Myrcella to lie to Balon, and the princess claims it was Darkstar who killed Sir Aerys and caused the chaos at the Greenblood. Befouled by this troubling news, Sir Balon Swann sets off with Obara Sand for High Hermitage, intent on bringing Sir Gerald Dane to justice for his alleged crimes. Sir Balon Swann is the closest representation in the narrative to what a proper member of the Kingsguard should be. He is bold, strong, and loyal, even to a fault. When questioned about the lengths of his commitment to the crown, he insists he would indeed choose duty before family. And though he isn't forced to prove it like Sir Jaime, his actions certainly display this sentiment. Balon fights fiercely in the Battle of the Blackwater for King Joffrey, and suffers great shame at his inability to save the boy from his gruesome demise. But without missing a step, he is assigned to protect the boy's younger brother Tommen as he too ascends to the throne. Balon takes to the task heartily until he is whisked away to Dorne on yet another assignment conjured up by Queen Regent Cersei Lannister. Sir Balon Swann is infinitely loyal, and it is this same loyalty that also serves as a detriment to his being. For his role as a member of the Kingsguard, it is invaluable, but when the king and his court lack the moral standing of their protectors, it can become a weapon. Balon blindly obeys Cersei's schemes in the name of protecting and serving the crown, setting himself up for judgment, conflict, and far worse. It is, of course, his duty, but the excuse of following orders can only take one so far. The ultimate fate of Sir Balon Swann is far from clear, but the lone trait saving him from the wrath of his enemies is his reputation for chivalry. If not for that virtue, yet another member of the Kingsguard may have been lost to the sands of Dorne, abandoned and attacked on behalf of a royal court who cares not for his life. Yet another prominent second son of Westeros, Sir Balon Swann fulfilled his calling after the riot of King's Landing. He took the White Cloak, pledging himself to serve on the Kingsguard in the company of the men who should be the most aspirational in the realm. But unlike his sniveling peers, Sir Balon actually embodied his position. However, the loyalty required for such a role meant he was forced to sacrifice virtue to enact his lord's wishes. Sir Balon became entangled in the Game of Thrones, to be used as a pawn when he was only attempting to do right. Balon Swann suffered because of his blind servitude. So, that's all for this video. Leave a comment with your thoughts, I'd love to hear them. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you're new here, I'd love to have you. Visit my website russellawellsauthor.com for exclusive reviews, fiction, and more, and sign up for my mailing list for free exclusive content. The links for both are in the description below. And, like always, I will see you next time.